Welcome to episode 35 of Talking Prisoner. Our amazing guest today appeared in 79 episodes in the final year of Prisoner in 1986 and was Wentworth's last top dog. She's also appeared in other Australian classic TV shows and movies such as Constance, Mesmerise, Takeover, The Flood, Who Will Save Our Children, Blue Heelers and Neighbours. Our guest is also a writer, director, voiceover artist, and has won awards for her book narrations. Our guest also formed a company called Raspberry Ripple Productions to create work which dissolves the divide between the mainstream and disability arts sector. We're, of course, talking about Katehood, who played Kath Maxwell. Welcome to Talking Prisoner, Kate.
Thanks, Matt. Lovely to be here.
Fantastic. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning. Lovely to see you again, Kate.
You too. It's been a while.
Now, I know the Prisoner fans will be itching for us to get into Prisoner, but before that, we'd just like to learn a little about your life. Whereabouts did you grow up as a child?
I'm actually a Sydney-sider. So I was brought up in Redfern in Sydney in the 60s when there were gangs of Sharpies roaming the streets. And my mum was a single mother at the time. And so it was in the days before the single mother's pension. And so we lived in the shed at the bottom of my grandparents' garden in Redfern.
Oh, wow.
And that's where my earliest memories are living there. And eventually my mum bought a house up the road and we lived in a terrace house in Redfern. Yeah.
Amazing.
Can you tell us what you were like at school and did you have a favourite subject or an unfavourite subject?
Interesting. Maths, I would say, was my most unfavourite subject, and English was probably my most favourite subject. And in high school, French. I loved French, although I can't really remember it now. But yeah, all that was great. And I went to Sydney Girls High and Burke Street Primary. And I loved primary school, was not really taken with high school, I've got to say.
Yeah. So this is episode 35 and every person that's come on has said the exact same thing as you.
Is that right? I think probably because for me, as I was growing up, I realized very young that I wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
And I think I was about 7 years old. So it
Wow.
was a no-brainer for me. I had no use for learning ancient history or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm more interested in that now than I was then. But yeah. It was an up and down time.
Yeah.
For me.
And what did your mum do for work when you were younger?
My mum, as I say, she was a single mother, but she was actually the first female chef in Australia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she trained, she was going to tech while we were very young kids and got her qualification then.
Wow.
So I can't tell you what the year was, but it was definitely in the 60s.
Wow.
And she worked for the Sydney Morning Herald and was there, she cooked sweets for their publication, and which was all black and white photographs in those days.
Yeah.
And so all the photos from the Sydney Morning Herald in the 60s were my mother's work.
Wow.
Of their sweets. Yeah, she was and she worked, I think, for St. Vincent's Hospital as well. Yeah. After that.
So you would have eaten some amazing food at home then?
Yeah, we ate really well. We had really good food. I mean, I lived around the corner from a young guy called Darren who ate nothing but fish and chips, you know. And so, you know, we were definitely working class, but we ate well. We had books, we had piano lessons. I learnt ballet when I was a kid as well, you know. It was a good upbringing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
What did your mother think when at age 7 you told her that you wanted to be an actress?
Well, I didn't tell her at age 7, but I think that when I did tell her, she sort of patted me on the head and said, very nice, dear, that's great. And I think the whole family was a bit devastated when I said, actually, that's what I'm going to do, because it was a bit like running away to the circus in those days. You know, there was no career, there was no, I mean, in those days, there was no film industry in Australia, nothing. So, but I wanted to be a theatre actor. That has always been my greatest love and still is, actually.
Yeah.
So, which is probably not what the fans really want to hear, because you know, it's all about Prisoner and the stuff that I've done on screen, isn't it? But I've also had I'm a jobbing actor. That's what I am. I've had a parallel career on stage and doing voiceover work and audiobook narrations and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, that's been the great thing about this podcast is it is Prisoner, but also learning about your life as well and everything else you've done prior to Prisoner and after Prisoner. And
yes,
yeah, it's been fascinating to learn about everyone. So in your spare time, which I'm not sure if you have a lot of, but do you have any hobbies that you like to do?
Look, I'm an avid reader. I love nothing better than curling up with a good book, and so I do a lot of that. I find that as I get older, I need to do more of that than less, and I'm interested in walking my brain a bit. So I write and I advocate for disability, having an acquired disability myself, in the theatre, most particularly. Yeah, but I guess, what do I love to do? I also love to, I love the movies. I love going to the cinema.
Yep.
And I actually love going by myself. I really enjoy that. I love sitting in the dark and making up my own mind about something without having anybody else's opinion, you know? So I do love that. And I often go to, in Castlemaine, there's a place called the Theatre Royal, and that's a cinema up here. And it's actually a very old building, which is also used for live performance. And so you go in there and it's a cavernous place with lounges and, you know, a few seats and a gallery area as well. I love doing that. It's great.
Sounds amazing.
Do you have a favourite holiday destination?
Oh goodness, that's a very interesting question, Ken. I haven't been on holiday.
For 2 years.
For a very long time. And I think that coronavirus has kind of put paid to all of that. But I do recall as a child going up to my family's holiday house in Caloundra in Queensland on the Sunshine Coast. So Queensland's a bit of a fave in my mind's eye. Yeah.
Caloundra's a beautiful area.
It's gorgeous. Yeah. I've played Caloundra. I did a show up there.
Oh, okay.
And that was a very interesting experience because I hadn't been there for many years. And of course, now it's very built up. But when I was going up there as a child, it was dirt roads and the school bus, you know. And my brother and I would go to the library and, you know, get our books out for our holiday reading. That's where my love of reading comes from. And we'd lie on the beach and read books, you know, and go swimming and go for long walks and all that stuff.
Great stuff. Do you have a favourite TV show that you like?
Another interesting question. Probably not really. I don't really, I'm not really a fan, I've got to say, of any particular thing. Although I do love Killing Eve, I've got to say. I think that's a great one.
Okay.
And I am an ABC watcher. I don't watch commercial television. It drives me crazy. Ads drive me crazy, really.
They do.
Can you tell us and the fans a little bit about the other TV shows you appeared in before and after Prisoner?
Prisoner was my first TV show. And so it's only really after Prisoner that I did Neighbours and what else did I do? Blue Heelers and a few films. I haven't done that much on telly, I've got to say.
A lot of theatre.
So Prisoner was kind of the first thing that the first TV I auditioned for in Australia. I had lived in New Zealand for about 8 years, and I just arrived back and went for the audition and got it. So yeah, bits and pieces. As I say, a jobbing actor.
Yeah. And what was it like going back to Nuttawading all those years later for Neighbours?
Oh, that was amazing. Really amazing. The first person I saw was Tony Osaka.
Oh, wow.
It was incredible. And he'd been one of my favourite directors to work with on Prisoner. And there he was, looking exactly the same. And there were, you know, cheery hellos in the corridors from wardrobe staff and makeup people. And yeah, it was like coming home. Absolutely.
Did it bring up a lot of memories when you're inside the, you know, the corridors and things like that? Just sort of flashbacks of Prisoner?
For me, it's more the people. It's actually connecting with someone in the canteen and going, oh my God, how are you? I haven't seen you for the longest time. And reconnecting with Jackie Woodburn, you know, because she went basically from Prisoner to Neighbours and stayed there, you know. So, yeah, amazing, really amazing. The building is much the same, much the same.
We'd actually like to go back there too, just for a reminisce. Now tell us, you worked as a puppeteer and a mime artist. How did that come about?
This was how I went to New Zealand, actually. I knew that I wanted to be an actor, but this job came up for a puppeteer with Parvati Puppets in Sydney. And I auditioned and I got the gig. And it was actually an amazing time of my life because we travelled through schools in New South Wales and we did things like we played Tibooburra, towns like that. Gadooga, I think, is the name of another one. And in those days, it was 70s and there were dirt roads. And I mean, I remember playing one small town and the entire town turned up.
Wow.
Not just the school kids. Every person in the town came to the show. So we had grandmothers and grandfathers and parents and kids and teachers and, you know, the fish and chip man. And it was incredible. I loved it. Really loved it. And the mime came about through my going to New Zealand with Parvati Puppets. And I went from the bottom to the top of New Zealand playing shows in schools there, and eventually decided to stay and went to drama school over there. And I had a Chilean teacher who was also a mime artist. And so he taught me mime.
Amazing. Now you're also a singer and you had your own jazz band at one stage. Can you
used to be very much used to be, yeah. That came about through doing a stage show with a guy called Peter Neville, who is a wonderful musician. And he and I got together and formed a band called Katie Did. And that was in the, in the 80s, I think. Yeah. And we worked together for about 5 years, something like that. Yeah. And it was that was a great thing to do, really wonderful. I was just kind of putting my toe in the water musically. And I've always loved doing that. Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, I never really I never became Kylie Minogue, put it that way, but it was something that I enjoyed very much, and I had a regular gig for a while there. The Terminus Hotel in Richmond in Melbourne. Yeah, fantastic. Long time ago. We're going way back.
Well, the 80s, everything great in the 80s happened, so it was.
Yeah, I mean, for me, 70s is greater than the 80s. The 70s was really my era.
Yeah.
And in the 90s, the 70s fashions came back. And believe it or not, I still had a top from the 70s that I pulled out of the drawers and put on and started wearing again in the 90s.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed recently, the mullet has come back with the young school kids now.
I quite like a mullet.
Oh, you like a mullet?
I do quite like a mullet.
I mean, Ken would grow one for the podcast, but he hasn't yet.
John Farnham always had a great mullet, I thought.
Oh, you did,
yeah. Probably still does, actually. And John English, absolutely.
Yeah, he had a good one. And so did Tom Richards, who we spoke to yesterday. He had a great one in Sons and Daughters. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Now, you're also a writer and director, and you formed your own production company. Can you tell us about Raspberry Ripple and the projects you worked on?
Yes. Raspberry Ripple is, we're now into my current life, and Raspberry Ripple evolved out of me acquiring a disability and looking around myself and going, hang on a minute, there is no theatre company in Melbourne, in Victoria, which is disability-led. We do have Back-to-Back and Raucous, but those companies are actually directed by non-disabled people. So I am really passionate now about the stories from the point of view of disability being told, and just because they're interesting. They're actually very interesting stories, but we are not seen on stages and screens in the way that non-disabled people are. And we still have a situation in Australia where drama schools don't take and train deaf or disabled students. Really? At all. They just don't do it. I mean, the occasional one sneaks through, like Bridie McKim, but they don't take quotas. Wow. And they only allow people in if teachers don't ever have to change their practice. And so I'm pretty passionate about changing that in 2022. I really want to see that happen. So it took me a while to come to form Raspberry Ripple, but I see that it's necessary. And I write because basically I wanted to have material that I could perform, and there was none. Yeah. So I wrote my own. Wow. And I've continued doing that. Yeah. So Raspberry Ripple is a company which uses deaf and disabled performers, and it tells stories from the point of view of disability. Amazing. And that is the reason that I formed the company.
I love the name. Where did the name come from?
Oh, Raspberry Ripple is Cockney rhyming slang. So, you know, a Cockney yeah. bloke might say, "Yep, the wife's a raspberry," you know. And it's Cockney rhyming slang for cripple. Okay. And I want to reclaim that word as my own. We all do, I think. Yeah. So that's where the name comes from.
I think that's just it's an amazing thing that you're doing, because you're
Thanks,
right. You don't see any, disabled people on movies or TV shows or.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Australia, we've got this thing where, because people are not trained, disabled people are not trained, I have lots of people ring me up and say, do you know somebody who can play X role for me? And I say, look, I really can't help you. You need to talk to your mates who teach at drama school. You need to talk to NIDA and WAPA and VCA about this, because I am not a casting agent. I'm an actor.
Oh, so they're approaching you for...
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, because I've kind of reinvented myself as a disabled advocate, and I talk to people constantly about disability within the performing arts.
Yeah.
And so I'm known throughout the industry as that person. And so, you know, I'm happy to help people out, of course, always, if I can. But I'm also really passionately wanting to put it out there that other people need to do stuff as well.
Yeah. You must be changing some lives there with your students, being able to achieve their dreams of wanting to be in the performing arts. And
well, I hope that I'm having some kind of effect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, really, you can't be what you can't see, right? And so young people who are disabled are not seeing themselves reflected on screen and on stage. That's just not happening, apart from when they see me in Neighbours, you know.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Amazing.
No worries.
You got any shows happening at the moment with Raspberry Ripple? Or?
I don't at the moment, but I am in the process of getting my year sorted. Yesterday, I was talking to some people about making an online version of something I've written called Queen Esme of Collingwood, and which is actually something I wrote for the stage, but hey, coronavirus.
Yeah.
So it was going to be happening at the Arts Centre in Melbourne, but had to be postponed because of coronavirus. And so I'm doing an online version of that now.
Oh, amazing.
But hopefully, everything crossed, I've got my one-woman show coming up in June at Chapel of Chapel, which is called That's Why the Lady Needs a Ramp. And so this is a show which has been up and coming for the whole of coronavirus, and it's been postponed 3 times, I think, now. So I'm hoping that this time we get to do it.
Well, please let us know closer to the time, and we'll blast it all over our social media and YouTube channel.
Thanks, Matt. I shall.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's get to one of the greatest TV shows ever made. Now, you appeared in 79 episodes of Series 8 in the final years, 1986, between episode 601 and the last episode, 692. So how did you get the part of Kath Maxwell? You said you had to audition for that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the time, because I've been living in New Zealand, I was not known in Australia. And so I came back, I had to find an agent and get myself represented. And this audition came up. And in the interim, I'd met a few people in the acting world and had been sort of told about this thing coming up. And in the acting world, it's kind of not what you know, but who you know often. And so I went along to this audition and had a good time, and they invited me back for a second look. And basically they ended up making the character around my audition. They had written something and they kind of reconstructed it around what I'd done and the conversations we had during the audition.
So Kath Maxwell was not the original character that you're auditioning for? Oh.
No, I can't remember exactly what the character was, to be honest.
Okay.
But I think they saw what I did, and what was going on at the time was that Lou Siverson was leaving the show.
Yep.
Had given her notice, and so they needed to replace a character, and that's what it was about.
Wow.
So she and I kind of intersected a little bit and worked together a bit, and then she left, unfortunately, because I loved working with her.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and she's a lovely person as well.
Yeah.
Really nice human.
Yeah, we had her on back in the first month or two when we started this, and yeah, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Had you ever actually seen the show, or were you aware of it before you got the role?
I am trying to remember. I think I had watched maybe an episode or two, but I hadn't really been watching the show. I hadn't been doing that, certainly.
Yeah.
It was a job for me. I mean, who knew it was going to become iconic? Who knew? I didn't know. I just thought I was auditioning for something, you know, and that's what jobbing actors do. So, you know.
Yeah. Did you, when you got the part, did you know you were going to be on it till the end, or was it just like a short term at the start?
I absolutely didn't know what was going to happen. I had no idea. I mean, I can't remember what my contract actually was. I think maybe I was contracted for 6 months or something.
Yeah.
And that the contract was renewed after 6 months, I think. But don't quote me on that, because it's a long time ago and I'm not sure. But it was a wonderful thing to do. Absolutely. Yeah.
I've got a fan question from Luke Tiapa. When we first see Kath, she and her husband, Alan, are having dinner with their good friend, Bob Moran, played by the brilliant Peter Adams, who had just been through the Lou Kelly's riot in his new position of acting governor of Wentworth. Your first few episodes were working with Peter. Can you tell us some memories of him?
Look, that was, my goodness, that's going back a long way. As I remember it, Kath and her husband were good friends with Bob Moran.
Yeah.
And so Bob looked after Kath when she first came into the prison, as I remember it. You guys probably remember more than me, actually. But Peter was a consummate professional. What can I say? He was so great to work with and a lovely human being. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a person who died too young, in my opinion. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a shame we didn't get to work together in an ongoing way, but I think his character was written to serve a purpose. And so it ended at a certain point, you know, and Kath, of course, became immersed in the prison culture.
Yeah. She got right into it.
Right into it.
Yeah. Now this storyline, the euthanasia storyline, where Kath ended her daughter's life, her terminally ill daughter. Obviously, there was no Google back then. There was not a lot of research you could just jump online and do. And, you know, I've watched all those episodes. I mean, I've seen every episode, but particularly these episodes. I mean, the emotions that you drew on for these storylines, where did it all come from? I mean, what did you research it at all? Did you, I mean, because you looked exactly like it was so real. How you...
I did. As you say, no Google, but I certainly read up about spina bifida and euthanasia. And I actually attempted to get inside a Fairley prison in Melbourne. I really wanted to get inside and get the vibe of a women's prison, particularly, and see what it was like. But I couldn't get in. They wouldn't let me go. So,
Wow.
you know, it was largely from the research I'd done, the reading I'd done about euthanasia and about spina bifida, but also as an actor, you've got, all actors have to connect to themselves, basically. So the part of myself that is absolutely fierce about something, I connected to that. And I think that for Kath to have killed her own daughter, she must have felt really that it was the right thing to do, absolutely the right thing to do. And in those days, there would have been no help.
Yeah.
There would have been no NDIS, there would have been no support for her in any way. So I think people do this. You know, I think they assist people to die all the time, actually.
Yeah.
And so it was a very real thing to me. So I drew on, I suppose, my own feelings about that, but also my own feelings, but made over to be Kath's. I did an analysis of that character and who she was and why she would do something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a great thing to play, a great thing to play. Yeah, because I think that this is a real issue, euthanasia.
Mm.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think they've just passed the laws for that in Victoria just recently. Yeah.
Yes, I think last year.
Yeah.
That came in. Yeah, which I'm personally very happy about. There are some disabled people who are not happy about euthanasia bills being passed. And a very vocal critic is Liz Carr in the UK. Because what we know, what we disabled people know, is that if we are knocked unconscious in a car accident or something like that, and it's known that we are disabled, the medicos will not value our lives as highly as they value somebody who's non-disabled. We all know that. So we all run the risk, if we're in an accident of that, of never getting out of it.
Wow. I never knew that.
Big issue, very big issue.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Very important issue.
Very important.
Now, Kath underwent a dramatic personality change to adapt to life in prison, including starting down the path of hard drugs. How was that for you to cope with?
Kath was such an interesting character.
Yeah.
She was a really, the writers would put something in and throw me a curly one to deal with. And I love that, because every person is capable of being a murderer. Every person is capable of being, you know, one side of good and one side of bad. You know, we've all got it in us. And that made the drawing of Kath very interesting for me as an actor. So yeah, she was a fascinating human being, but she was always in process.
Yeah.
Absolutely always. So she came into the prison as a middle-class woman who had a very comfortable life, but had made a decision which was going to change her life forever. And she made the best of it. I think she realized that she had to be on top. She had to direct her attention to being in control of the other women. And so that's where she went.
That's what I loved about Kath. You never know where she was going to go. There was, there was so many paths leading out.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. I'm not sure if you have any memories of Peter Flett, but there was a lot of fans asking about it. Your on-screen husband, Alan. What was it like working with him?
Oh, Peter's gorgeous. We didn't get to work together very much, you know, because it was the induction of Kath, basically. But he's a lovely, lovely man, absolutely. And another consummate professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, what can I say? He's gorgeous, a gorgeous human being as well, again.
Yeah, you had a great chemistry on screen, both of you. It's good.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Because we have to manufacture that, actors, you know, if we're not doing a lot of work together over a long period of time, we have to kind of talk to one another and look one another in the eyes and go, okay, well, what do you reckon about my character? And what do I reckon about yours? And how are we going to do this?
Yep.
You know, and he was a great person to be with in that regard.
Now we oh, sorry, go Ken.
Speaking of chemistry there was a clear chemistry between Kath and Bob Moran, as was picked up by Meg Morris. Do you think they would have gotten together had the circumstances been different? And would you have liked them to get together? And do you also know why Peter Adams left the show?
I can't answer the last question, but absolutely. My reading of Kath and Bob's relationship was that if Alan hadn't been on the scene, if Kath hadn't chosen Alan as her husband, she would have chosen Bob for sure. I think they fancied one another. I reckon they did, you know.
I don't think Kath would have gone down that path though. You stayed with Bob. No. I think she made her choice and she would have stuck with Alan. Absolutely. Yeah. Now you had some really intense scenes with Glenda Linscott, who played Rita Connors. Some amazing scenes. What was it like working with Glenda and doing some of those really heavy scenes with her?
Do you know what? It was fun. It was really fun. You know, we laughed a lot. And Ken, you probably remember that we did. I mean, the green room at Prisoner was just hilarious. It was, you know, really full of laughter and fun. Absolutely. But also people sleeping on couches, you know. And so, but I loved working with Glenda. She was lovely. And she's now head of acting at Whopper.
Yes.
So, yeah, she's, yeah, it was really great. I loved working with Lois as well.
Lois, yeah. You had some great scenes together with Lois.
Yep.
When she became top dog and you took her down.
Yeah, that's right.
Hit her over the head with a ball with a sock.
Yep. Yeah, gosh, all those scenes in the gym, you know, and fighting and all that stuff. Oh my God. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Glenda's a lovely actor, really gorgeous. And I saw her in Angels in America in Sydney years ago, and she played the angel and she was amazing, absolutely amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
You worked with a lot of other people during your time on the show. Did you have anyone you particularly enjoyed or look forward to doing scenes with?
Gosh, I mean the cast, my usual company was Maggie Kirkpatrick and Elspeth Ballantyne and Joy Westmore and Ernie. Oh my goodness, a lot. Gerda Nicholson, amazing. She was absolutely amazing. Another person who died way too young, but she was 100% reliable always as the governor.
Yeah.
And Maggie was somebody I had watched on stage as a child. My God, you know. So for me, coming into Prisoner and getting to work with her was amazing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she is an incredible actor. You know, she's an amazing actor even now, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we had her on just recently. She's great. She loves theatre as well. Theatre's her main.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, you had a lot of Kath had a lot of schemes going on in the prison, a lot of things going on with Rodney Adams, played by Philip Hyde. What are your memories of working with Philip?
Oh, Phil, yeah, he was really great too, young. I think it was his first role on telly? I can't remember. Fun, very fun. And doing those scenes with him was a lot of fun because it was all about the sexual tension between the two and Kath's manipulation of him. It wasn't that she was attracted to him. She was just manipulating him for her own ends. So it was great fun to play.
Yeah, he did it so well. I mean, I don't know if you remember the scene in the van where you're out shopping for the shop and Merle's escaped and you're both driving the van and you're just telling him what to do. I mean, that just would not go on in a prison. Don't tell Wentworth she's escaped it.
I don't remember, I don't remember that scene, but, I'll take your word for it. Absolutely.
No, it was funny. You just manipulated him so well to what you wanted.
Yeah. I mean, Kath was a great manipulator of people. She really was. She manipulated Merle too.
Yeah.
And I think she loved Merle, but she also manipulated her to do exactly what she wanted and to keep her safe.
Yeah. Actually, just before we go to Ken's question, just on Merle, who we just speaking about, is one of my questions, played by Roseanne Hull-Brown. What was it like working with Roseanne? Sorry, not Merle.
Great working with her. She was a lovely human being, and I haven't seen her for so long, really so long. I've heard that she is now living in Adelaide or something. I'm not too sure.
Well, I think she's up in Queensland somewhere, up north.
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
You know more than me.
I only know a little bit. Have you guys had some chemistry on screen? It was good. It was good to watch. Do you think it was sort of she was a replacement for your daughter, Linda, in a way?
Yeah. I mean, I think that Kath saw her as she had a disability as Kath's daughter would have had.
Yeah. And
so, which is really interesting to me because now I've got one as well, So there's a kind of a shadowy thing going on there, about a prescient thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that she had a learning disability as well, that character, made her very childlike. And so Kath, I think my rationale as an actor was that Kath had definitely replaced her daughter.
Yeah.
Whose name I can't even remember now, but had replaced her with Merle. What was the name?
Linda.
Linda, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here, Matt. It's good.
Ken knows more than
me. He is a fan. Now, can you tell us, do you have a favourite storyline or episode or scene that you did, or one that you are particularly proud of?
I think that my favourite scene would have been the one with John McTiernan coming in as Kath's psychotherapist. And that was a really kind of figural scene because it was the one where Kath broke down and became all of the person that she was from that point on. And so that was the beginning of her journey into becoming top dog. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great scenes with him.
Such a beautiful actor. Gorgeous. Yeah.
And he was big on that show GP, I think, on Channel 2.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah.
An excellent series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ken, I took your question about Roseanne Hull-Brown. My apologies. I steal these questions all the time.
That's good. It shows that you're in simpatico, you know.
So you can have my question if you like, Ken, which was the...
Can you tell us some or any funny on-set stories or any behind-the-scenes gossip? Speaking of sleeping on couches, I was guilty of that once myself.
Were you? Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. Look, I can't really remember any one thing that was hilarious, but there was so much hilarity in the room. And all I can say is that Elspeth Ballantyne is one of the funniest women I have ever known, for sure. We were hysterical. I can remember crying with laughter. She was absolutely hilarious. And I mean, I don't think that I'm an absolutely hilarious person at all, but it was a joy coming to work every day and going into that room, because one never knew what was going to happen. And Maggie was very funny too.
Yeah. It's interesting about Elsbeth. Elsbeth was on the show from episode 1 to 692, and so was Ken as a crew member.
Yep. I can distinctly remember her saying that she was going to put her 2 boys through private school.
That's
on that,
right.
on Prisoner.
That's right.
Yes, darling, I'm here until the last episode.
I admired her greatly for that.
Yep.
Ken.
Yeah, they would have benefited a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Their mum being on the show.
Definitely.
Sure.
She said she didn't even care if she was typecast.
No.
Because her number one goal was getting those boys through education. And, you know, I thought that was extremely commendable.
Yes. Oh, I can remember a funny thing that happened with Maggie, actually. I remember there was a beautiful young man on the floor, and Ken, you would know what his name was. It's just gone from my head.
Wasn't Ken?
But he
No,
asked Maggie to move somewhere, and she just stood there, and he was absolutely gloriously handsome, this young man. And he was floor managing, had headsets on and all that stuff. And she looked him in the eye and said, "Move me." And so he picked her up and carried her and put her down. It was hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
I'm racing through my mind now, thinking about floor managers and so forth, and I can only come up with Ray Lindsay, but I don't think it would have been Ray.
No, it wasn't Ray. Oh, look, you'll probably remember when we finished.
Once we finished, and Ken will go, "Oh, it was him."
Yeah.
Could have been Ian Kenny. It also could have been any one of a number of other floor managers, because we had a few.
Yes, yeah, and Peter, I remember.
Peter Hind.
Peter Hind, absolutely, yeah.
Big Pete.
Big Pete, yeah.
So he literally just picked Maggie up and moved her.
Literally, yeah. He went stiff and he just picked her up and put her down where he wanted her. It was very funny. And he was very muscled and, you know, very handsome, very, you know, very strong, all that stuff. Wow. So it was a moment.
It's interesting what you said about Elizabeth being typecast. She actually never did get typecast because she went on to do a big stint on Neighbours.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, the Alessi family, or from memory, was that? Yeah. Ken.
Yeah. Also, your thoughts on favourite writers and directors, and do you know who created your character? Well, you in part created your own character, but who else?
Gosh, you know what? I can't really remember the writers' names, but Mari Trevor would have been involved, definitely, and Jan Russ, of course. And who was the head writer?
Possibly Coral Druin.
Possibly.
Ian Smith was at the time as well.
I remember Ian being in Neighbours, and I remember Neighbours moving into Nunawading, and they had their green room and we had our green room. And I remember Kylie and Jason coming into our green room and sitting and having a chat.
Oh, wow.
I remember that distinctly.
Yeah.
Well before she became famous. Well before.
Wow. Now the ending, when they said Prisoner was all over, what was it like for you when you heard that news? Were you hoping to go on a bit longer? Do you think the show could have gone on longer? Could Kath have gone on longer?
My first thought was, oh, bugger, you know, because really I had made up my mind that I was going to stay there for a good 5 years. I was going to let it run its course and let the character develop and have some more significant things happen with the character and then go off. Because as an actor, if you're on telly for a while, you tend not to work afterwards because you can't be put into a play. I mean, if you are in between being a bit famous and being really famous, like Lisa McCune gets a lot of musicals, because, and she works very hard as well. But I was in that in-between stage when I was doing Prisoner. So I would go into Coles to do my shopping and get followed by fans, and things like that would happen. I'd walk down the street and find somebody was following me or whatever. So it was kind of, there was that period of not being on telly twice a week and not having any money because the pay had stopped. And so I distinctly remember getting no-name tomatoes from Coles and putting them in my trolley. And I looked up and there was some guy watching me do it and taking a photograph, you know.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Just on that note, I just want to interrupt just for a second, but you were saying there's fans that were, recognizing you in public. Was there ever a time that, with that heavy storyline of you killing a child, I know some fans take things literally a bit seriously about things on shows. Did you ever cop any negativity from anyone out in the public?
Absolutely. I can remember distinctly my partner at the time and I were in the Botanic Gardens in Sydney, just enjoying the day. It was a beautiful day and there was a wedding going on and the bride caught sight of me and started abusing me, yelling and screaming and going, "You fucking bitch." Wow. And she actually left the wedding party and came over and I just left.
She was the bride of the wedding.
She was the bride, yeah. Unbelievable.
Wow.
And that was a really fairly significant event. But there were also people who had no idea what was going on. I was not that famous, It was only people who were addicted to Prisoner and fans of Prisoner. And she obviously was.
It's amazing.
And it was during the Rodney story, I think.
Wow. I mean, that was I had to ask a story because Vivian Gray, who was Mrs. Mangle on Neighbours, I mean, she said she had to move to the UK just to escape the abuse from the public in Australia because, they just hated her. They didn't hate her, but they just thought she was...
And people get confused about, the actor and the character. They think that you are the character when they see you in the street. And so people would often talk to me as Kath in the street and react to me as Kath. And this is a very weird thing that happens with actors. But I, much later, years later, moved into a house and got to know my neighbour, and I never mentioned Prisoner or what I'd done as an actor until I got to know her very well, and then I mentioned it because I thought I could and it would be fine. And this very strange thing occurred where she went, "Oh my God. Oh, Kath. Oh, Kath, how are you?" And she began to talk to me as Kath. It was very, very weird. And I had to say, hello. Hey, my name is Kate. My name is not Kath. And it took really a good half hour before she was able to discern the difference between the character and me, the actor.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's almost a complimentary thing in a backhanded kind of way.
Yes, it is, Ken. I agree. But also, of course, as a human being, I want connection with people in the same way that other people have connection with people. Yeah. And so it's always slightly disappointing to me that I've got to know somebody really well as a friend, and suddenly there's a barrier in the way of that. And so, you know, Prisoner's kind of a bit of this and a bit of that to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit bizarre, though. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of other celebrities from my other business, and they say, you know, fans, you know, come up to them and call them their character name, not their
absolutely
actual name.
It happens to everyone. Yeah.
We just call Ken Ken. Legend. Now, I want to be courtesy of your time. I think we might move on to the fan questions just so we don't leave them out, because it's getting on a little bit. But before we do, there is a question a lot of fans always ask, is working with Taya Stratton, who played Spider Simpson. Do you have any memories you can share with the fans about her?
Oh, you know, I feel so sorry about Taya, another person who died way too young. She was a bit of a loose cannon. She was, I think, very young. I remember her being fresh out of drama school, VCA, and being very inventive as an actor. So one never really knew what she was going to come up with for Spider. And Spider would, in one take, do one thing, and in another do another. Oh, so wow. She was not the reliable actor that Maggie was, for example. She was a new breed of actor, but she was very good. Really enjoyed working with her.
What was it like working with someone that was doing acting like that? Was it different?
It demanded something of you. It demanded that. It demanded flexibility, and I quite liked that, actually.
Yeah.
She was a method actor, I think.
Wow.
So, I mean, she always knew her lines and all that sort of stuff, but she would approach them differently every time she did them. Wow. Which for television is not that great, because, you know, the pickups don't work properly. Yeah. Unless you're consistent. But she was a live wire, absolutely, as a human being. Mm.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. And a lot of fans do ask about us. So it's great to get some memories.
Yes, yeah.
Fan question. So my first one's actually a comment from Justin King, not a question, saying, "Oh my God, these interviews are getting so gripping." Obviously having you on. Love the character and love even more your voice on behalf of the disabled. That was from Justin.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for that. I appreciate you saying that.
I've got a comment from Leslie Hall saying, "So exciting. My favourite actress in that final year. Loved Kate working with Maggie Kirkpatrick. They seemed to bounce off each other as characters. Loved those scenes."
How amazing. Thank you for that comment. I really appreciate that. I loved working with Maggie. Absolutely. She's a very fine actor, I think. Yeah. And loved the developing relationship between Joan and Kath too. That was it was a revelation to me, and something that we played with a lot on set. Yeah.
Did you and Maggie ever I mean, you guys had some great scenes together, even especially the ones, you know, where you get her to the top position and she's put Reynolds out and she's the governor and Craven's dead. And I mean, Kath was all responsible for that. Did you guys ever sort of have a chat about where it was all going?
Look, undoubtedly we did, you know, but Joan was a great manipulator and Kath was a great manipulator. So they were made for one another. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, it was a great thing. Those scenes were really well written too, I remember.
Definitely. The next one's from Rachel Hadwin. I love the Rita Connors / Kath Maxwell era and watched this as a 12-year-old.
Oh, wow.
I was devastated when the show ended, but luckily for me, it's restarted again on Channel 5 a year later. Now, Kath had mellowed in the final episodes. Rita even chose her as the new top dog. What do you think the prison would have been like under Kath's regime? Kath had some very tough scenes. She was a difficult character to play. If you could play another character, who would it be? So there's two questions there, sorry, from Rachel in the UK.
Another character. Oh my God. Do you know, I don't know what to say to that really. I can only think of Kath. Yeah. Really. And I was kind of looking forward to the next bit with Kath. I was looking forward to what the writers were going to come up with. But I think in my mind's eye, Kath would have been a terrific top dog. She would have been all of who she was. And I think that actually she was a good woman, but had learned to survive in the prison system. And I think she would have brought good changes in for the women. Absolutely. And I think she would have probably been, once Joan was out of the way, there would have been no need to manipulate anyone. But who knows what the writers would have come up with? Who knows?
Well, we know Maggie wouldn't have stayed on. She said that if the show went on, she wouldn't have stayed on. So it would have been interesting, the crossover there with Joan in prison, gone, Kath taking over. I think it would have been great.
Yeah, it could have been really good. Yeah. But we'll never know.
No, we won't.
Dave Metcalf reiterates a little bit of that when he says the interviews get better as they roll on. Katehood is such a fabulous actor and writer. I loved her in Prisoner. Her character was so different compared to other top dogs. Kath was smart and used her brain, but I loved the fact beneath it all, she still had a heart for Merle, in brackets. I wonder what Kate would imagine Kath is up to this very day in 2022. Would she be rehabilitated and released, living in a semi-detached house in outer Melbourne? Would she still be inside Wentworth? I'd like to think she was released early and got to have her life back again. Happy ending for Kath.
Well, 2022, Kath in 2022. Well, I think she would have been released by now. She would have served her time. She would have got 20 years or something. So she would have been well released by now, unless something happened to keep her in.
Yes.
You know, so she might have done something that made her stay in there, got some more charges. She might have killed someone, who knows? But yes, in my ideal world, I reckon Kath would be out, and I reckon she'd be working with refugees or doing something really good for the community. Absolutely.
And living with Merle. Merle would have been there as well.
Yes. Yeah. And looking after Merle.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Graham Rowan said, it's off topic, but I will mention a fantastic narrator of audiobooks, particularly Ruth Park books.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. I totally appreciate it when people even know about my audiobooks, you know, because I've done, I think I was told over 70 for Belinda audiobooks. And so I was Di Morrissey's narrator for 18 years or so. But I love, the latest one I've done is Cosmo Cosmolino and This House of Grief by Helen Garner. And those were both really great books as well. So yeah, Ruth Park, oh my God, what a great writer. Amazing. Yeah.
Is that something you do in a studio or you can do from home now?
Always I've done them in the studio out at Belinda. And it used to be in the old days before I became a wheelchair user, I used to have to be in the studio upstairs, and they made another one downstairs, which was just serendipitous for me because that's the one I could get into. So I did a lot of books in the in-between time after I became a wheelchair user. That was a main source of work for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen O'Neill says, looking forward to the Kath Maxwell Katehood interview. Please ask her if you get the chance. I felt Kath was the prisoner version of the freak. Kath had her sympathetic side, just like the freak had her humanitarian side also, but not to each other. Kath and the freak alternated back and forth. Did she like the constant switching from good to bad and back again? Thank you, Steve O'Neill.
Steve, I loved the constant switching. I loved it. It was great. It always kept me on my game as an actor because I never knew what was around the corner with Kath. It made her really complex as well, which I loved. Every actor loves complexity. We all do. So, yeah. And I loved, as I said before, loved working with Maggie and loved that relationship between the freak and Kath. It was really powerful. Two powerful women, you know, defending themselves from one another as well. So, yeah.
Both trying to the top.
Yep, absolutely.
Next one's from Ollie James. We've sort of touched on it, but I will read it out to you. I would like to ask Kate 2 questions, if I may. Euthanasia has always and will always be an emotive subject for many people, based mainly on personal beliefs. Someone who has not lived that experience could not begin to understand the mindset of someone who has experienced watching someone they love suffer due to an illness. What are Kate's thoughts on the subject? And my second question is, what does Kate think that would have happened to Kath and Merle had the series continued? Would they have been paroled together after they finished their sentence? So we did touch on that, but we'll go back to the euthanasia storyline.
Yes. So euthanasia, oh my goodness, what a topic. It is a very live topic in life generally. But playing Kath and Kath giving herself up, having killed her daughter, was really interesting to me. I think that it was a great way of introducing a character into that show.
Yeah. And
it was a great thing for an actor to play with and to think about deeply. Yeah, it was, it's a very important subject though, generally, and not one which goes unheeded in life, I think. But hey, you know, in the 80s, tackling something like that in a series like Prisoner, amazing. And I also think that Prisoner tackled some really groundbreaking stuff. I'll never forget Carly Belling coming onto the show, the first Aboriginal actor ever to come onto that show. And that was a real groundbreaking thing.
We had Kylie on just recently. She was great.
Yeah. I will never forget her coming into the rec room and absolutely trashing it. We were all the actors were standing around watching her do that. It was incredible. And she got a round of applause afterwards.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
What was it? The line was rec room, hey, let's wreck it. And then off she went.
Yeah. Yes.
She said she actually had people come up to her in outside of prison actually say that line all the time.
Oh, really? Of course they would have. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The next one is from Paddy Barrett. Now, two questions. Kate, the great actor John McTiernan was terrific in his role, and I presume this role would have been developed if the show had continued. What are your memories of these scenes and working with John? That we've partially touched on that. The other thing is, Kate, did producers give you and Roseanne Hull Brown the story arc of Kath and Merle, or was it something that developed along the way with the writers and producers observing your performances?
I've got no more to really say about John McTiernan except that that scene was my favourite scene and the one that's figural in my memory of Prisoner. But yes, Roseanne Hull Brown and I kind of developed the relationship between Merle and Kath as we went along. And the writers, I think, observed what was happening and wrote around it. So I never felt that things were dictated to us, although in some ways they were, because the scripts were written right and we learnt the lines. But I think it was a very collaborative thing.
Yeah.
And I think that in the future, Kath and Merle would have always been together. I think that Kath would have always looked after Merle, absolutely, both in and out of prison.
Yeah, definitely. Cole Taylor said, even though they were not in prison together, I'm sure the late, great Betty Bobbitt said Kate and her were friends. Is that right? And would you have liked to have worked alongside Betty?
I would have loved to work with Betty. She's another very funny person, was another very funny person. And we were in touch until she died. Yeah, absolutely. So, I would have loved working with her. I did work with her, but not on Prisoner. She directed Nonsense, and I came into that show to replace, to understudy, to understudy June Bronhill in the lead role. And June broke her wrist and couldn't go on for a couple of months. And so I got to play that role for a couple of months with Betty directing.
Oh, wow.
Which was fantastic.
Yeah. A
bus and truck tour with Arts Victoria.
Amazing.
We went to places. Victoria's full of great regional theatres. And so we did a regional tour around Victoria with that show. It was a great time.
Fantastic.
I actually first encountered Betty in the 1960s on a program called Daily at Night, where she came over from the States and was a sort of stand-up comedian, but one of the panelists on the show. And she was great fun back then.
Well, she remained great fun until the day she died. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very funny.
The next question comes from Liverpool in the United Kingdom, from Mark Wilson Marr. Oh my goodness, you're getting prisoner gold with these interviews. I loved the final year of the show with the Rita versus Kath storyline. Kate really turned Kath from baddie to goodie, and I don't think we ever see that with any other character. My question is, what was your reaction in the day you were all told the show had been axed, and did you have any input into how it would end?
Wow, what a question. the day that we were given our notice, I just remember reaching for my phone. So I must have had a mobile phone by that stage. Did I have a mobile phone? No, I couldn't have.
Well, maybe the big brick one, the big aerial on it.
No, I've made that one up. I'm sure of it. I must have raced to a phone somewhere and phoned my
in the
agent.
green room.
Yeah.
Phone in the green room.
And I think a lot of people were doing that on that day, going, oh, shit, got to find another job really quickly.
Bringing the agent straight away.
Absolutely. Oh my God, have you heard the news? It was all that.
Yeah. Well, Bonnie Davis Shacko said, she's such a wonderful person and actress, katehood. I am beyond excited to see you'll be on the podcast. Bonnie, big fan of our podcast and Prisoner, obviously.
And she's
Hi, Bonnie. We're actually friends on Facebook as well.
Oh, you are? Yeah, she's lovely.
Yeah.
From the USA.
Yeah, all the way from the USA. Absolutely. Yeah. So, thanks, Bonnie. And yeah, lovely to see you. I have got a fantasy that I want to share with everyone. And my fantasy is this, that Kath actually comes into Wentworth. That's my fantasy, because I think as a wheelchair using actor, that would be awesome if I went into Wentworth, or if Kath went into Wentworth. But yeah.
Did you see what they did with your character in Wentworth?
Ask me again, Matt. What
did you see what they did with your character in the new Wentworth?
No, I didn't actually see it. But I believe that Pamela pretended to be Kath Maxwell at one stage.
It was a really bizarre.
Yeah.
So Joan Ferguson's in jail, and she took on Kath Maxwell's persona. Yeah. Which was interesting.
Great.
Yeah, would have been great to see you in Wentworth, definitely.
Yeah. I need to get my agent onto that one. Would be great.
Yes, well, your fantasy made us all lean, and especially the fans, lean in further to the screen, wondering what the heck it was going to be. And Andrew Birch says, oh my God, this just gets better and better. Love Kate's character. Kath Maxwell was very complex. I always had a lot of sympathy for her. My question, Kate, what were your favourite qualities of your character?
My favourite qualities of Kath were, I remember doing a scene with Paula Duncan's character, Lorelei.
Yep.
And Kath came in, and they were having a bit of a spat. And Kath had worked out that actually Lorelei could be of some use to her. But there was a scene also between us where I remember Kendall Flanagan was directing that one, and he was tearing his hair out going, I don't understand this scene. What is this scene about? And I went in with Paula and we talked about it between us, and we played it in a particular way. I said, I think there's subtext in this scene. And I think the subtext is that Kath actually really likes Lorelei. And we played it that way. And Kendall went, job done. That's it. And so I remember coming into work, and he was in the editing suite the next week, and he called me in and said, this scene is my favorite scene from this episode.
Wow.
It worked really well. And so as an actor, I loved playing with those things, exploring where Kath could go, and exploring her compassionate side as well as her controlling side. She was very complex, and I really loved that about her. Yeah.
We've heard some great stories about Kendall too, haven't we, Ken? Well, Ken knows him quite well. Knew him
Yes,
quite well.
I knew him. I knew him fairly well. Yes.
Yeah,
He was a complex character too.
he was. As was Susie. Yeah.
Susie, I'm still in contact with. She's a lovely lady.
Yeah. Amazing.
Now there are a few fan questions left, but I know we are pushed for time. Are you happy to go on a little bit more, or you want
Oh, yeah. It's what, 11:34? Yeah.
11:34, yeah. You're happy to do a couple more, or?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, thanks so much. Richard Bobbins Duffer, I hope I got that right. I feel Kate had some of the most emotional scenes in the series, and she was incredibly convincing, especially the breakdown Kath had in the governor's office stayed with me for a long time. How did Kate prepare for such a scene? And thank you for the portrayal of Kath.
Thank you for your question, Richard. Oh my goodness. All those scenes were really connected to the person that Kath was and the complexity of her story. So my job as an actor was to let her come through me and to allow that emotion to be there in that scene. And I didn't find it difficult, I've got to say.
Wow.
It was not something I had to really work on conjuring up. It just kind of happened, you know.
Yeah.
All of the emotional scenes with Kath were had good reason. They were justified. And so they were easy from that point of view.
Andy Dolman says Kath was probably the best character in the final year, with an excellent story and potential, and Kate's acting was exceptional, bringing the role to life. Can you please ask, if the series had continued, would Kate have stayed in the show, and did she ever think people would still be so obsessed with the show and her so many years later?
Last first, no. I had no idea when I began doing Prisoner that it was going to become an iconic series. No idea at all. Yeah. But I'm very proud that it did. And I'm very proud to have worked on something which celebrated women in that way. I think it was an iconic show because of that, actually. And it was the first, my God, I look back at the episodes with Carol Burns playing Frankie, and it's the first depiction of a lesbian woman on television, you know, amazing. She was an amazing actor, although she only did, what, 13 episodes or something? 16,
yeah, I think it was. Yeah. And that was 1979. I mean, Ken's got some really vivid memories of working with Carol.
78 and 79.
Yeah.
We began production in 78, but it didn't go to air until 79.
Right.
But yes, I have vivid memories of her, and Carol was such a gentle person, nothing like Frankie.
Yeah.
But so different. But she just did things with that role that were incredible.
She was an exceptional actor, really. I just think, you know, what a great way for the series to start, you know.
Yeah.
It was an incredible character, really.
Very ahead of its time, this show.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. Phil Lee said, wow, another amazing actress, loved and hated Kath all at the same time. I think I said it bad.
There's a comment from David McCallion, who says, Kate, we saw your readings in Daylesford a few years ago. Amazing lady.
Oh, that's incredible. That was, wow, way back in, I think 2013 or something, I would have done those readings. My friend Karen Mannering wrote a play and called Whatever Happened to Deirdre Wheeler. and she wrote it around me being a wheelchair user. And so we performed a reading of that play in Daylesford, which was fantastic. But I also performed my own writing there. So I'm not sure which one David came to, but it was a great event, really.
Yeah. John Harrell, now going back to that scene in the governor's office, which is a really popular scene. Hi, Kate, loved your character. Do you remember the powerful scene you did in front of Mrs. Reynolds and Meg in the governor's office, where you literally had a breakdown? Your acting was superb, and I can't remember a character doing this before ever on Prisoner.
Oh, wow. Do you know what? I need to rewatch that scene because I don't really remember it. I remember the one with John McTiernan, but not that one so much.
No, that's okay. More of a comment as well. A lot of fans talk about that scene and how brilliant you were performing it.
Oh, that's very nice. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Adam Roberts gives us a pat on the back. Another fantastic addition, guys. Kate's portrayal of Kath's multifaceted character was nothing short of amazing. A myriad of stellar scenes with Glenda, great chemistry. However, I would like to ask Kate if she would share any memories of working with the late Taya Stratton, Spider Simpson, which you've already touched on.
Yep. I probably haven't got much more to say about Taya. But my heart is really sore for her, the way she died. I feel bad about that because I think she would have gone on to have a stellar career.
Yeah,
you know, I think she would have become something really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jane Murray said, hello from the UK. I've got to ask, how did you manage your hair? The length was unreal. Also, love the relationship with the wonderful Merle.
You know what? I look back on that and I look at that really long plait that I had in those days. And of course, now I've got really short hair. And I think, well, you know, it would have been a great scene if Rita had cut Kath's hair off. That would have been amazing. And I should have done that. I thought about it, but never had quite had the courage to do it. Yeah.
Well, Maggie actually did it to Lexi's character in Prisoner. Cut her hair. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Oh, my phone's going off.
Probably asking where you are.
Yeah. These two guys have kept me on Zoom for all morning.
I can't turn the damn phone off sometimes.
Are you
Sorry
okay
about
to
that.
continue on? Are you okay to continue on?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Was it hard to manage that hair, or it was
Not really. I mean, look, there was such a lot of it. I look back on it now and think, oh my God, winter was like, I never had dry hair ever because I'd wash it and I never used a dryer on it, you know. So I would put it in a plait and it would never dry. So what was the point of it, really? I don't, you know, my attitude to that hair now is very different from the way it would have been then.
But it was a signature for Kath's character.
Yes, it was.
And it was quite remarkable because I remember noticing it a lot of times and thinking, God, the hair is so long.
Yeah.
Anthony Burrows says that Kate played a complex character beautifully and utterly convincingly. Her care for Merle, played by Roseanne Hull-Brown, seemed so genuine, and their friendship was one of the highlights of the final stretch of the show. What can Kate share about acting with Roseanne and the on-screen chemistry they had, which I think you've pretty well covered?
You have, yeah.
I think I probably have. I'm just thinking, I think the thing I most enjoyed about working with Roseanne was that anything went. We responded very well to one another. And I will never forget the scene where Merle was under the bed and Kath was sitting on the floor trying to coax her out. And, you know, we kind of talked about that scene and what it's like to coax a child out of a cupboard. Yeah. And for me, it was like that, really.
Yeah.
But there was always a great warmth between us, and breathing the same air with her was very, very good. Yeah. Professionally and personally. Yeah.
I will say a lot of your episodes that are on YouTube or scattered around the internet, you know, the common comments, and I mean, there's so many of them about the chemistry between you and Roseanne and the parts that you played on the show. It's, you know, and there was a lot of questions, fan questions that come through. Also, the same thing. There's a lot about you and Roseanne in that role together. Right. Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's curious about Roseanne. Absolutely.
Yeah, and yourself as well. Matthew Brown, just a comment saying another great actress who played her role so well.
Thank you, Matt.
Three more to go. We're not far off.
Darren, well, I'll cut this a little shorter. Darren Hembrow says, yes, multiplied by 6 times. Oh my God, this interview will be fantastic and cannot wait to see it. What an amazing actress playing a very misunderstood character who I had a lot of sympathy and compassion for. I'd love to know if Kate had any input into her character and if she drew on anyone she knew to help her create the depth to her character. On a personal note, Darren also says, I'd like to thank her for her advocacy on disability too.
Oh, Darren, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that very much indeed. Going back to the complexity of Kath's character and me drawing on someone, I don't think I really did. There wasn't a person that I thought, okay, that person is going to be my model. And sometimes I do that. Sometimes I see someone and go, okay, that is this person.
Yep.
But Kath was so complex, and I think that we were making it up as we went along, basically. Like the writers were writing things that were kind of, they were dipping their toe in the water all the time. And so I remember having conversations with people and conversations with Mari, particularly about Kath. And, but it never bothered me. The complexity of her never bothered me, because I think playing that role gave me the idea, really taught me that everybody is complex, actually. But most people don't show their complexity because they go for a style of a person that they want to project. And that's the way they live their lives. But I think Kath was really complex in a fundamental, a fundamental way.
Yeah. Jamie Brown said, how did you feel about being the last ever top dog on Prisoner?
Oh, yeah. And I was saying, yes, I'm quite proud of that. And when I talk about when people find out that I've done that show, I will say that I was the last top dog.
Yeah.
I was top dog for one episode, you know. Well, a part of one episode, actually.
Yeah.
But, you know, it kind of heralded things to come and was quite a good note to finish the show on, really.
I have to feel sorry for that actress that got inducted into Wentworth in that last scene.
Yeah, right.
One of the highest rating shows to do the final scene.
Yeah, amazing. And doing that very final scene, that final day was really difficult because, as you remember, no doubt, Ken, we had outside things going on and studio scenes going on, and I had a scene in each. And the scenes inside were running behind time and outside they were ahead of time. And so the jigsaw didn't fit properly. So there was one scene outside that I couldn't be in. And I've always regretted that, always. Yeah.
was like, because
I was sitting in the green room waiting to be called into a scene in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you have dialogue in that outside scene?
Gosh, I don't remember. Probably not. It was probably the lineup or something.
Yeah.
And Kath should have been there, but wasn't. Yeah.
Yes, because that was an incredible finale.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole thing.
And the freak being inducted into Wentworth. Mm.
Yeah. Sean Nash was on not long back telling us about how he directed that episode and cut into each prisoner's face and even the extras that were on the background inmates and cutting back to Ferguson. And yeah, great scene.
Oh, funny story about that. I remember there was a dolly shot in one episode, no idea which one, and there was food and the prisoners were all helping themselves to food, and the camera was on a dolly and was going down the table, and there was one extra who made her way down with the camera, and they had to reshoot it because she was always there. The camera never went past her. She was always there. Do you remember that, Ken?
No, I don't, because that's an outside shot, and I worked only in the studios.
Oh, right. Oh, this was in the studio, I think.
Oh, was it?
No. That's my memory, but it was very funny. It was.
I may have been asleep on a couch in the green room.
You may have been.
Cell bed. Actually, I want to ask one question. I do forget to ask a lot of the times. Is did you ever eat the food in the dining room? Oh, you did.
Yes, and it was dreadful.
Oh, it wasn't as bad as you made out.
It was shocking. Cold as well. Cold chips. Yuck.
Probably canteen food from the beautiful panorama room.
Yes, probably. Yeah. Mm.
My last question, or my last comment from Lee Van Fries, is a very underrated character in Prisoner. She was very good at dramatic scenes. I particularly remember the scene she had with her husband in the garden when she broke down over her daughter's killing, but then realised Alan was unforgiving and unsupportive. It was at that point she seemed to harden and become the cold and calculating Kath we know. Really looking forward to watching this.
Correct. Absolutely. You've reminded me of that scene, and thank you for doing that. Yes, that was the moment. Yeah, in my actor's head that Kath really hardened because she realised that she had no support from her husband. She was on her own. Yeah.
It was a great scene. Well, that was the last fan question, and thank you so much for giving us a bit of extra time. I know you're busy and we really appreciate it. And as a fan, I'd like to thank you for bringing us Kath Maxwell and all those scenes you did and the amazing work you put into that character development. And yeah, I speak on behalf of all the fans that they do thank you as well.
Oh, thank you, Matt. That's lovely. Thank you. And thank you, Ken. And thank you for doing this podcast.
No, thanks for coming on. Do you remember working with Ken as well? What was Ken like? Everyone actually, Ken, everyone tells me, they send me messages. You've got to ask the cast what Ken was like.
Ken was gorgeous. All of the crew were gorgeous, amazing, and totally reliable. Absolutely. I felt very supported by everyone in the crew, always. Yeah.
It was great working with you and your hair.
Thank you, Ken.
All right. That was it. Yeah. That was episode 35 of Talking Prisoner. Thank you for watching. If you could please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Talking Prisoner, and share this interview everywhere you can. Please also like all our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all the rest of them. And this episode will also be available across all the podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeart, and all the rest of them. And also on the talkingprisoner.com website. Thank you so much, Kate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Mine too. Absolutely.